guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing how I made my son's dinosaur birthday cake. I thought this was such a fun theme for his birthday this year. So I did a really simple dinosaur birthday cake, but it honestly turned out so good. It was really simple and easy, very easy to follow along with. So I think you guys will really enjoy this one, especially if you have a toddler or a kid that likes dinosaurs. This would be perfect for their next birthday. I'm going to be sharing the recipe for the cake, the filling, the chocolate ganache, the frosting. Everything is from scratch, really simple and easy though. So if you are starting out with baking and cake decorating, this is gonna be a really simple first cake for you to do. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, I just want to say welcome. My name is Caitlin. I share a lot of really quick and easy recipes on my channel, crockpot dinners, meal prep, and other food related content. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you are subscribed, and let's go ahead and get into this dinosaur cake. So we are starting off with making the chocolate cake. Now this is my favorite chocolate cake recipe ever. I make it all the time. It's a really good one. So I'm just starting by mixing up all of my dry ingredients. So I'm just adding them right into my stand mixer. So this is 2 cups of sugar, 1 3/4 cup of flour with 3/4 cup of some unsweetened cocoa powder, and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and baking soda with about a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just gonna mix all of this together in my stand mixer until it's well combined. Now that all of the dry ingredients are combined, I'm adding in all of the wet ingredients. So this is 2 eggs with 1 cup of milk. I tend to use whole milk. And then you're gonna want about 1/2 cup of some vegetable oil, along with a couple teaspoons of vanilla. That really adds a lot of good flavor here. And then again, you're just going to mix all of this together in your stand mixer. Now that the batter is all mixed together, I'm just taking 1 cup of boiling water and I'm gonna gradually add this into the cake batter. This is gonna add so much moisture. It makes it so good. I promise you this is the best chocolate cake recipe. I always get a ton of compliments on it. It's a really good one. Now I'm heading over to my island and I'm actually gonna cut out some circles out of some parchment paper. So I will just line my cake pan up with this and cut out a perfect circle. Now this really helps prevent the cakes from sticking to the pan. I know you can also just spray the pans, but I promise you this is a foolproof way to get your cakes out and they will never stick on you. So I will just spray my pan with some cooking spray, put the paper in there, and then spray it again, and this works really good. So now I'm just gonna take that cake batter, and for this cake I ended up mixing up 2 batches of cake and I spread it out between 3 baking pans, and it worked really good for this recipe. I'm gonna bake this at 350 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, but that baking temp will depend on the size of your pans. And then over to my other bowl here, I'm going to make the filling for inside of the cake. So this is super simple. It's just 1 box of the instant vanilla pudding. And then I'm adding in about 1 1/4 cup of whole milk, whisking all of that together, and then I'm gonna pop it in the fridge for about 5 minutes to let it set. After the pudding has set, I just kind of mixed it up a little bit, and then I'm adding in about 1.5 cups of just some regular Cool Whip. You can also make some heavy whipping cream and use that if you want to be a little bit more fancy, but I kept this really simple, giving this a good mix together, and it turned out to be a really good filling, so I highly recommend this recipe. Now that I have my filling done, I'm going to be making my chocolate ganache. This is super easy and it makes for a perfect drip on the side of the cake. So this is just 1 cup of some heavy whipping cream. I'm just going to heat that up until it just barely starts to boil in the middle. And then into this bowl here, I added in 1 cup of some semi-sweet chocolate chips. Once that heavy cream had heated up, I'm letting it sit on top of the chocolate for about 30 seconds. And then I'm just whisking all of this together. And then you're going to want to let this sit for about 20 minutes or so and let it cool before you actually start decorating the cake so it doesn't actually melt your frosting. Now we are moving on to making the chocolate buttercream. This is the buttercream recipe that I always make. It's my all-time favorite. I did go ahead and double the buttercream recipe. So here is 2 cups of some semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm just melting them in the microwave until they are completely melted, and then I'm gonna set them aside for a couple of minutes to cool before I start on the actual frosting. Into the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm adding in 4 sticks of unsalted butter. Like I said, I did go ahead and double this recipe. So I'm adding on the whisk attachment, and I'm gonna let this butter whip up until it's pretty nice and fluffy. You definitely want this to get a really creamy consistency. And then I'm adding in some of the powdered sugar here. So in total, you're gonna want to add in 4 cups of powdered sugar, but I do like to gradually add that in just so it doesn't go everywhere and make a huge mess. So I definitely recommend try and add that in kind of gradually, but you're going to want about 4 cups of powdered sugar. I will also have this recipe linked down below for you guys. I do like to let this frosting get really nice and fluffy before I even add in the chocolate, but once I've added in all of this melted chocolate, I do like to let it whip up for another couple of minutes. The longer that you mix it together, it's just going to get really nice and fluffy. It's going to make it a little bit less sweet, but in general, this is such a great frosting. It's not super sweet like a lot of frostings. I get a lot of compliments on this one. It's definitely one that I have been making for years, and it is foolproof. Now we are moving on to actually assembling and decorating the cake, which is my favorite part. So I'm starting with a little bit of frosting just on the bottom here, just so my cakes don't actually slide off during transporting. And then over to the side here, you see that I have my 3 cakes that are all baked and ready to go. I know that I didn't show them right after I got them out of the oven, but all you're gonna do is take that parchment paper, peel it off, and it will come out absolutely perfect. Just flip it over and you should be good to go. Now in between my layers, I am adding in the vanilla filling. This turned out so good in there. It was really nice and creamy. You can also use the chocolate frosting in between the layers if you want, but I definitely recommend trying out this filling. It was really good and so easy to make. So I am adding that in between my layers now. I had just a small amount of overflow from the filling, so I'm just taking a cloth and wiping that off just so it doesn't get mixed in with my chocolate buttercream. And then I'm going to be frosting this. So I am not perfect at doing frosting by any means. I'm still very much so a beginner, but this chocolate buttercream is really easy to work with just because it's very smooth. It doesn't get a lot of air bubbles in it. It is a really good frosting recipe if you're looking for a chocolate one. Really great to frost with. Now this spatula I've had for quite some time. I've had it for a couple of years. It's a really good starter spatula. I can just link it down below off of Amazon. So if you're looking for a spatula that kind of does everything, I do recommend this one. I like to make sure to cover all of the edges of the top of the cake too. It's going to help when it comes to actually scraping down the sides of the cake. I'm using that same frosting spatula to actually scrape down the sides of my cake. Now, if you have a bench scraper, that's definitely the right tool to use here, but I just don't have one. I haven't ordered one, and I never think to order one until I'm actually making a cake. If you have a recommendation for one, I would totally love to hear it. Leave it for me in the comments down below. But I feel like I get a pretty good smooth finish with even this tool. So if you're looking for a good versatile tool, this is a really great one to start with. And then I'm using that same chocolate frosting on top. Now I wasn't as worried about getting a really smooth finish on top just because I am going to be adding a lot on top here, so I didn't need that smooth finish on the top of the cake. Now I'm ready to add the chocolate ganache drip on the side. Now this is gonna look a little bit tricky, a little bit complicated, but I promise you it really is not hard at all. I even had the wrong tool for this. I should have been using our squirty bottle with like a really fine tip, but I could not find the top for it anywhere. So all I had on hand to use was a Ziploc bag, and I cut the corner off. Otherwise you can use a piping bag for this, but all you're really gonna do is drag it along the side and squirt out a little bit in different areas. The key here is that you want the little drips to be different lengths, and it will look really good. It's gonna look a little messy to start with, but I promise you once we add everything on here, it turned out so good. This was such a simple way to jazz up this cake a little bit on the sides. Now that the chocolate drip is done, I'm just taking some of these Chips Ahoy cookies and I'm going to be breaking them up in a Ziploc bag. Now you could also use Oreos here if you wanted to give it more of that black dirt type of look, but I wanted it to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more gravel-like, if you will. So I'm just taking this heavy bottom glass and smashing them up. This worked really, really well, and I love the little crunch that it also gave to the cake. Just something a little bit different for some more texture in it. So definitely recommend these Chips Ahoy cookies. And I'm just sprinkling all of those right on top. You can do a ton of them, or you can do a really light layer. I definitely went for quite a few because I wanted to have the dinosaurs stick right into the cookie layer. Now that I have all of the cookie crumbles on top of my cake, of course I'm adding on some dinosaurs. I tried to get a variety of different dinosaurs here, so I added on a Spinosaurus, a long neck, as well as a little T-Rex on there. Of course you can do some bigger dinosaurs or some smaller ones. Totally personal preference here, but I felt like 3 was about the perfect amount on this cake, and I'm loving how this turned out. Now I did feel like it was missing a little bit something on the bottom, so I ended up going back and adding on a little bit more in just a second here. Before I added anything onto the bottom of this cake, I did go ahead and wipe down the sides with a washcloth just to get any of that leftover frosting on the sides to give it a nice clean finish. And then I'm going to be adding on some cookie crumble onto the bottom. Now you could also pipe some frosting on here if you want to, just to give it a little edge on the bottom. But I have to say I really like how the cookie crumbles looked. It paired really well with the cookies on top of the cake. It just gave it a very nice finished look, kind of rocky. I did go ahead and keep these crumbles a little bit on the bigger side compared to what was on top, but this cake was definitely one of my favorites that I've ever made. It was very simple and easy. My son loved it. So if you have a toddler or a child that likes dinosaurs, this is such a perfect birthday cake for them. Very simple and easy to put together, and the cake on the inside is so delicious. Definitely my all-time favorite cake recipe. Very, very simple to make and easy to put together as well. Well, that is going to wrap up this dinosaur cake video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. I know I had so much fun making this cake. Very simple and easy to put together. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I share a lot of really quick and easy recipes with a little bit of motherhood sprinkled in the mix. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you're subscribed, and I will catch you all in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.